Hello and welcome back here to the stage. DS Smith, it's very lovely to have you all here, and it's a pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Sven Gruhl, who's already waiting. And Sven, he is the Director of Global Sales for PayU, a leading online payment facilitator in emerging markets. And maybe just a very brief background to Sven. He has extensive experience in the e-commerce sector. He has worked there for over 17 years, and out of the 17 years, over 10 in payment. Before he joined PayU in 2017, he had extended stints at PayPal, where he worked for over 10 years, and also 5 years working for eBay. And I'm very pleased to have him up here on stage and telling you something about the opportunity and how to optimize payments in emerging markets. So please give it up for Sven.
Hello, can you hear me? Good. All right, so hello. I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Sven Gruhl, as you just mentioned. I've been working for PayU since last year. Before that, I worked for PayPal, and I'm very glad to have the opportunity to speak in a round of experts about a very interesting and important topic. So I'll be talking about the topic opportunity and how to optimize payments in emerging markets. So the question is, how does the world shop today? There are like 20 billion devices out there that are constantly connected to the internet, where the people can actually buy online all the time. Tablets, mobile phones, desktops, notebooks, right? So in the developed countries, the people tend to have more of these devices than in the, let's say, emerging markets. So the saturation level in these developed countries is quite high. And this is what we also see in terms of e-commerce growth. So it's constantly decreasing year by year. So the question is, where does the future growth come from? Let me give you an answer on that one. So this map clearly shows the differences between North America and Western Europe, showing e-commerce growth of 10 to 12% annually, versus regions like LATAM, Central Eastern Europe, or Middle East Africa, showing growth rates of 17 to 25%. APEC, the APEC region, is even outgrowing these markets by 37%. So the potential is huge, and it's no surprise that 90% of the global population under 30 lives in emerging markets. So these digital natives are actually used to using the internet and devices, being online and shopping online. So it's obviously a huge factor that is very important for the emerging markets. And the question is, how big is the opportunity ahead of us? Global cross-border e-commerce is expected to be around 1 trillion in 2020. Nearly 2/3 of this 1 trillion will come from the regions that I just mentioned before. So let me give you some European examples. Russia. Russia has been growing tremendously over the last years, 21% year-over-year growth, and it's amounting for $17 billion in e-commerce. So only 30 million of the 142 million Russian population actually accounts for these 17 billion in e-commerce. That means that there's 80% of the Russian population headroom ahead of us. Or Poland. It's one of the fastest growing e-commerce markets in Europe in 2016, with an annual growth rate of 25%. So about 1/3 of the 39 million population in Poland account for the $13 million in e-commerce market, which is also a huge number. Turkey. Turkey is worth almost 10 billion in e-commerce, 9.4 billion, and has an extraordinarily high rate in regards to credit cards. Only 12.5% of the Turkish people, the Turkish population, out of the 80 million, account for the almost 10 billion in e-commerce. You see there's also lots of potential ahead of us. Last but not least, a fairly small market, Romania, but it has experienced the most explosive growth over the last years, with 30% in 2016. So if you compare the aforementioned markets, if you accumulate the business and the e-commerce in these four markets, it's about the same level of Germany in 2016. The big difference, though, is that the growth rates are 2 to 3 times higher than in Germany, and we don't see any deceleration there. So if it was easy to get into these markets, everybody can do it. Obviously, you have some challenges and opportunities. So basically, you can say, if you tackle the local specifics and the local requirements accordingly, you will get really huge potential in new customers, and you will have really good sales numbers in that market. I will come to this slide later on. So what specifics are in these aforementioned markets, and how do the people really pay in the aforementioned markets? Local debit and credit card schemes are very important. Second, direct bank transfers, which also includes instant bank transfers. The third one is cash on delivery. So you can argue that cash on delivery is not a typical e-commerce volume, because it has a media break when it comes to payment. But in any case, it gives lots of headroom and lots of potential for us. And in many of the countries, this is still by far the #1 payment method. Last but not least, installments and special loyalty schemes. You will see in what countries this will be of high importance. So let me dig one level deeper into the markets. So this is for Russia. So Russia, you see in Russia that the cash on delivery part is really, really huge. Apart from that, credit card has the most importance. So in 2015, a special Russian local credit card called Mir, which is the translation for world, was invented by the Russian Federal Bank. The reason for that was that Visa and MasterCard blocked some Russian issued credit cards due to US sanctions. So that was the foundation of the Mir card. And at the same time, they decided to kind of enforce that Visa and MasterCard have to use the rails of the Mir card, and also to save the data locally in Russia. So the Mir card will be expected to have like 120 million cards issued at the end of 2019. So you see, it's a huge development which has been going on there. Next to credit cards, also the wallet is quite important in Russia. So namely Yandex, Kiwi, and WebMoney have shown lots of high growth in this country. And another point which is very important for Russia, you need a local entity if you want to work in Russia. Obviously, there are always exceptions to the rule. So the 3 things to remember for Russia are: you need a local entity, you need to make sure that the customer data is being stored in Russia, and thirdly, it's very important to use a local acquirer and the local scheme, namely Mir. The next country I would like to dig into is Poland. So it's crystal clear what the Polish people want to pay with. It's Pay by Link. Pay by Link is a synonym, or it's like equivalent to GiroPay, Sofortüberweisung, or Ideal in the Netherlands. And this is being used by 65% of the people in Poland. Another 30% of the people account for credit and debit cards as well as regular bank transfers. Next to that, it's very important, the credit instrument has also shown lots of prominence in Poland. Credit solutions such as buy now and pay later, which is a short-term credit solution, as well as the typical installments that we all know, where you have probably increase your sales, your average sales basket is also growing rapidly there. So the three things to remember for Poland are Pay by Link is of highest importance in order to serve 65% of the customers well. Secondly, the credit piece, so you need to offer installments or something, some solution. And thirdly, the cross-border business is of huge importance in Poland. So it has shown 46% growth rate over the last year. Actually, 1/3 of that is coming from German retailers. So feel free and welcomed to also go to Poland because it seems to be really huge for German retailers. The next one is Turkey. So Turkey is predominated or dominated by credit card payments. 90% of the people use credit cards. You see the scheme Visa, MasterCard, and another local scheme which is called Troy. Around 150 million debit cards are issued. About 60 million credit cards are issued. And next to the 80% that pay directly with credit cards online in the shop, you see another 10% using their credit card being stored in a wallet, in an e-wallet, which is called BKM wallet. It's actually a cooperation between banks and the merchants in Turkey. And they are very attractive to the merchants because firstly, this wallet is free of charge. And secondly, it gives lots of security. So this wallet has login as well as password initially. And secondly, after the transaction, you have to use this two-factor authentication, which makes it being considered a 3D secure transaction. And 70% of the people that use these credit cards use them on installments. What does it mean? It means that there are 6 banks in Turkey that have come up or initiated so-called local programs, loyalty programs, loyalty schemes. For example, Garanti Bank has come up with a loyalty program plus bonus. And installments work if the merchant offers the same loyalty scheme as actually the buyer also is enrolled to. So only if this matches, then buyer and merchant can really do business together. So this is really important to know that this is a big part of the Turkish payments business. The three things that you should keep in mind for Turkey are, as I just mentioned, installments based on local acquirers. Second, you need the BKM wallet solution, BKM Express, because it has huge advantages for the merchant and for the buyer. And thirdly, the data regulations, because similar to Russia, also in Turkey, it's required for payment processors to store the data within Turkey. So last but not least, let me dig into Romania. You see 83% in Romania are actually being done cash on delivery. Next to that, we see that credit and debit card payments are of highest interest. And we have also local schemes in Romania, such as Card Avantage or Alpha Bank. And these schemes actually also, similar to Turkey, they offer installments. And 40% of the Romanians use these installments. So this is really very common also in Romania that these cards are used with installments. So another one which is very interesting and also necessary is, which you see on the bank transfers, it's iTransfer. That's actually, again, equivalent to Pay by Link in Poland to Sofortüberweisung, GiroPay, or Ideal in the Netherlands. And the three things to keep in mind are, on the bottom left, installment cards based on local schemes, iTransfer with instant payment, instant bank transfer. And the third one is that Romania has by structure a very rural area, so you will have people that don't have any bank account. So that means that it's very hard to reach the unbanked. And in that case, we have the payment method ZebraPay, which was invented, which is a cash payment method. That means that the buyer checks out online in the web shop of the merchant and then goes to one of the 350 ZebraPay kiosks within Romania, all across the country, in rural or in urban areas, and pays the money directly to these kiosks. They can use cash, card, NFC, or wallet solutions. So this is how you reach the unbanked, and this works for Romania, but also for other countries that I've not mentioned today, for example, in Latin America. So what is the key to success? Let me wrap up. You have to gain local knowledge. Firstly, before going into a market, you have to make sure how big the market is. What's the market size? Second, you have to make sure if you need any licenses. For example, if you are in gambling or Forex, you will need special licenses, for example, if the market was regulated. Then it's very important to know if you need a local entity or not. So there are cases I haven't spoken about, but for example, Colombia, for selling services, you will not need a local entity. But for selling physical goods, you will need a local entity. So these are infos that you will not have without having talked to a local partner and to local experts. And last but not least, it's also very important in terms of tax. So there are countries that require withholding taxes based on the verticals that you actually sell into. So that's also necessary to know. You have to talk to tax advisors. And also the VAT is a very important point and differs from country to country. The second piece is address local habits. So obviously different countries, different languages, so it's very important to also address the languages. And a second piece is also the currencies. Even though Romania and Poland are in the Eurozone, they are not necessarily using the euro, right? So they are not in the, so they are in the EU or not in the Eurozone that way. And so this is really also very important to keep in mind before that there are different currencies. And also the payment flow differs from country to country. You have different regulations and laws. You know, Germany is very conservative. You need always to confirm the button in order to really make the payment. In other countries, this might differ. The third point is to optimize the payments. As I just mentioned before, you need to offer the preferred payment methods for the respective buyer. So, for example, in Poland, as I just mentioned, Pay by Link, 65% of the people use it, so you have to offer it. Or Mir in Russia, that's very important to offer, as well as the installment cards based on local acquiring in Turkey, or ZebraPay for reaching the unbanked in Romania. And so there are actually two reasons for offering it, because first reason is to attract the buyer at all, and the second reason is to give them the opportunity to buy, because if you don't have a bank account and you don't offer ZebraPay, you just cannot pay, right? So that's what you want to offer the buyers. Last but not least, increase the success rate transactions. So you need to be local and you need to be adjusting to local needs. So what does it mean? For example, fraud management. It's very important to use a local fraud management. You have local data. The fraud rates are, in some countries, are way higher than here. You know, this is very important to manage the risk and the fraud accordingly. And also local acquiring versus international acquiring is very important. So for example, an international acquirer might block locally issued cards. Let's say an international acquirer is not able to process a Russian locally issued card from a Russian bank, right? Local acquirers can do that. So that's the reason why they have to match. And if you do that, you get a higher conversion rate. So if you do the points 1 to 4 correctly, then the probability of succeeding is quite high. Of course, this is just, and we have to keep in mind, this is just a snapshot of the countries that are around. So coming back to the map that I showed before, there's also lots of potential in MEA, in LATAM, or also in APAC. I just mentioned 4 European countries, and if you want to be part and have a piece of the 1 trillion e-commerce market, cross-border e-commerce market in 2020, you will have to leave your comfort zone and to leave your home turf, and ideally couple up with a partner, with a PSP, and make sure that you work together and get the potential. This is how you will get the access and to the markets. So I would just recommend you think global and sell local. That's probably the best way to succeed in the emerging markets. Thanks for your attention. That was my presentation. I'll be around until the evening. If you have questions, feel free to ask me now, or also later on. I'm happy to answer them, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sven. Finally, microphone's working. Wonderful. Thank you for that very interesting speech. So now we still have a couple time for a couple of questions. If you guys are interested in asking a question right now, just raise your hand and I'll be flying over to you. Yes.
Hi, Sven.
Hi.
My name is Marius, and well, even though it was not on the agenda today, but I know that PayU and Naspers made some partnerships and investments to going in India. And my question to you would be, what are like the expectations that the group Naspers, PayU have in the partnership with Creditech from Germany in India?
Yes. So thanks for raising that. So obviously, Naspers PayU invested in Creditech last year, about 110 million, and we got a big stake in that. So we will leverage this in many countries. So in Poland, it's already done. We are leveraging it, and we work together currently with the Creditech team in order to leverage it to other countries. You're right, India is on the list as well, and also other countries in LATAM. And this is ongoing. Regarding India, we are already a big player in India. We're actually the market leader there. So we have the PayU India platform, as well as we bought the Citrus platform last year, which was actually our competitor. So we have a market share of 70 plus. And we do also have a solution in India, a credit solution, which is called LazyPay. But Creditech will be an amendment to that. Does that answer your question? Good.
All right. Anybody else who wants to ask a question? Well, then I have one last question for you. How do you feel about blockchain-based payment options coming up?
Thanks for raising it. Of course, this is some topic which is very hot, right? So everybody's talking about blockchains. However, I haven't seen this big breakthrough yet, right? So we are discussing it internally, and we are obviously also looking into options to use it. You can, for example, imagine that you might be able to pay out blockchain in cryptocurrencies in order to kind of prevent FX fees, for example, right? So this is also a topic we are looking into. As a market leader, we have to, but we have nothing to announce yet.
All right,
Yeah?
thank you. Otherwise, if there's nobody else who has the burning desire right now to ask a question, I'm sure you can find them later at the stand. And yeah, thank you very much again for that talk. And
yeah, welcome. Thanks a lot.